Well, thank you again for coming, everyone. My name is Alicia Barrett. I'm with Binny's, but our real guest of honor today is Aygline Pechdo, Vice President of Veuve Clicquot USA. Aygline, thank you so much for coming.
I'm very happy to be here.
Now, Veuve Clicquot's yellow label is one of the top-selling champagnes in the United States. So we tonight are going to touch on the Champagne House's history, go a little bit more in depth in its innovative marketing approaches, especially since, as you see in this photo, recently released the Cassette Tape package. And we'll also, of course, taste some of these beautiful champagnes. So, Aygline, thanks for being here. I want to start with Madame Clicquot herself. And she was the first woman to run a champagne house at quite a young age. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit of her story?
Yeah, of course. I think this is what makes this brand so special, is the history behind it. And you absolutely right. Madame Clicquot took over the house at the very young age of 27 after her husband passed away. And at a time where obviously women had virtually no rights. So running a house of champagne was definitely very uncommon, but she had shared this passion with her husband and already knew quite a bit about the business. And it was very important to her to kind of continue the legacy that her husband had started. But little, I think, would have he known that she would have transformed the whole champagne kind of industry through her amazing innovations. So as you can imagine, as a woman at the time, it was very hard to kind of put a foot down and really run such a big business. But she was extremely creative and super innovative. So she brought to the champagne world some amazing innovations. So starting with the reading table. The reading table is maybe some of you have seen this kind of wooden frame with holes in it where we put the champagne inside. So that has a purpose to kind of clarify the wine. And it's something that she came up with, like being in her kitchen, you know, trying desperately to find a way to get all the sediments from the wine to come down to the neck, which is today a standard practice. Every champagne house is actually doing this, and she's the one who created that. She also created the first vintage champagne, and that was very early on. And we'll touch upon it as we taste through the yellow label and rosé, but most champagnes are blended. Like we blend different years within the bottles. But she's the first one who had decided to create a 1 year, one harvest kind of champagne. And finally, I think one of the also most interesting innovations, and that's part of her legacy, is rosé champagne. And I'll touch a little bit upon it once we get to that. But she was a visionary, and she was extremely innovative, and that's what we try to continue to do today.
Thank you for sharing that. And just, you know, tremendous accomplishments, especially in the practices that now everyone, you know, takes part in champagne. But I just want to emphasize how early on these innovations were. We're talking the very, very early part of the 19th century. So the first vintage was in 1810, riddling 1816, and the blending to create of red wine to create rosé champagne was in 1818. So
yeah.
It's
well, in 2 years, in 2 years, we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the house, just to give you an idea. So it's definitely a very, very long history.
Yes, and we have some people drinking the rosé tonight. We are going to taste the yellow label first, and then the rosé. So go ahead and pour yourself a glass. So we kind of hear of her innovation and forward thinking. I do want to get into the marketing of Veuve Clicquot, and here at Binny's, we are always getting, you know, each year kind of the new package that you all have come up with. So I want to get into that. Firstly, how does your team come up with these brilliant ideas every year? And to jog some memories, if you want to share some of the recent ones, I do want to point out those city directional signs that you did a couple of years ago. Those were extremely popular, but so much so that everyone wanted a specific city. So we were, you know, digging in boxes in the back trying to source those. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's all rooted into the history and Madame Clicquot herself, you know, her kind of innovation spirits. And I think we're trying to push ourselves to come up with some new ideas every year to kind of, you know, excite consumers about, you know, what is going to be the next new thing for Clicquot. And the packaging itself is important because it's obviously the first thing that you see on the shelves. And you can tell this at Binny's, but it also brings some joy, some fun, and trying to basically, you know, look at champagne a little bit differently. I think a lot of us think about champagne as being a very traditional drink, you know, that you use for celebrations and special moments, which is fine and great, and it should be. But we also want to remind everyone that champagne is a wine, you know, and it's something that you should be enjoying not maybe every day. I mean, that would be great. That would help my business for sure. But I mean, like something that you should consider, just like you would consider wine, especially with food and wine pairing. So for us, we've always tried to kind of think outside of the box and bring some different ideas to consumers. So right now we are in the retro chic theme. Because there's a long also history of Veuve Clicquot with special objects and special moments. And retro chic can be, you know, any time period, but it's about kind of this love of, you know, again, a little bit of emotions about those objects that mean something to you. So for those of us that were born before 1990s, you probably remember the mixtape, which meant a lot at the time. It's something that you would share with your friends. Maybe you would do one for your girlfriends or your boyfriends with your favorite songs. And it has this kind of positive and joy, you know, kind of connotation that we love to bring back to consumers. So this is kind of the inspiration that we have behind this. But it's a very creative team based out of Paris that is, you know, rethinking every year, you know, kind of thinking about what's going to be the next trend, what is going to make people kind of happy and connect, you know, so it's what happens. But that's the collection for this year, the brand new collection. But you touch upon some of our previous kind of offers. Definitely the Arrow, so was one of the most successful offer that we created at first with cities that we had decided, because those are all beautiful destinations that we all want to be at. And eventually we made it more of a customizable tool so that everyone could actually print their own favorite destination. So that for sure has been one of the most successful offer. But I think there's a lot of great ones. You know, even the ice jacket, which today you can still find, was, you know, Clicquot was the first one to create this beautiful ice jacket that helps you keep the bottle cold as you do a picnic outside. We also, one of my favorite was the Smeg, the fridge. So Smeg is like, you know, something that every household probably in the 50s here or 40s, you know, had as a fridge. So it has also, again, this connotation of a beautiful object, but also kind of emotional connection with it. So we created a small version of it for our yellow label and then the Rosé as well. But this one was probably one of my favorite.
I love hearing that this common theme is about connection, and especially now, we need connection. And to your point, champagne is to be, you know, consumed very often, not just in celebrations, but especially with the cassette tape, because though I'm, you know, late 80s, there's still, then it was the mix CD after that. So,
Yes.
you know, your friend would create a CD, and the music may or may not have been, you know, illegally downloaded in the 90s and all of that. But, you know, they would buy music, download and share the CD with you, but it was a thoughtful kind of expression. And so it's a really creative approach. So how long does it take them to come up with these ideas? Do they, you know, is it a year-long process? Do they start right away, or is it over a month? They're in the conference room nonstop, coming up with various iterations.
Well, it depends on it really depends. But usually now we try to stay with the theme for a couple of years. So, you know, with the retro chic theme and those tapes, this is this year's version. Next year you'll get a new kind of version of it as well. But it really depends. Sometimes the process can take like just an idea someone has, and it could be just over, you know, a week. or sometimes it will be much longer about, okay, this is not good enough. Like, how do we continue to kind of be disruptive and think outside of the box and make sure that it makes sense with our consumers and the environments and the trying to think what's ahead and the upcoming trends. So the process really depends on, it's a creative process. So it really depends on what object we're thinking about.
Yeah.
But I would say it could go from 1 week to like a month.
Yes. Okay. And is it the same packaging globally, or are certain countries treated differently?
No, it's we're a global brand, and the idea is to really have consistency across all the markets. So everything is really kind of led by Paris, where the maison is located. And then we offer those special objects to the rest of the world, and to make sure that everyone has kind of the same offer. Now, in this case, for those special boxes, it's very limited in terms of how many we offer. So we usually would very much focus to like key markets, and the US being one of them. So you'll find it here, but you might not find it in smaller countries, because we just don't produce a lot of it. It's supposed to be collectibles, those are things that you want to keep. So it's not the idea of producing a lot of them. It's about, being a very special thing. So.
Well, I did pick one up for myself, and they are very fun. So well done to your team. And for those watching in the Illinois market, they are very limited in quantity. So be sure to visit Binny's sooner rather than later to pick yours up. We do have a question from Harold here, and kind of as we're talking about you being a global brand and your wines all over the world. He asked, maybe he traveled, pre-COVID, but he asked why you're no longer the house champagne on Cunard Queen Mary II.
Well, that's a commercial. That is yes, true. It was a long-standing brand for this, but business is business.
Yep.
Sometimes, and unfortunately, some commercial decisions are being made that we try to maintain those relationships, but you know how it is. So, but someone knows.
Yes. Well, I guess Harold, the answer is you'll just have to bring your own on.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Okay, before we leave the packaging, I want to know what your favorite package of all time has been. And my second question is kind of how long the creative packaging has been going on. I can remember kind of a few years back, but has this been going on for 10 years, 15 years, or is it a relatively new concept?
It's and if you think about it, it's always been there, because even the label, okay, it was on a box, but yellow label being the number one, champagne is, even this itself at the time, there was no packaging for champagne. There was no really difference. There was no labels. And Madame Clicquot is the one who created that yellow, at first was a ribbon to differentiate the style of our champagne. So I want to say like it's always been in the DNA of the brand, but now concretely, those very special boxes have been, the development of them and the reflection around them, probably more than 30 years. But not maybe as often as that we produce some of them, but I think it's always been in the DNA of the house.
I did look up the yellow label kind of trademark registration, and thanks for bringing that up, because I looked up that it was registered in 1877 that this kind of yellow label
yes.
began. So yeah, in that regard, marketing's always been.
Again, it's amazing that Madame Clicquot was a marketer very early on, so we're just trying to continue her pioneers, kind of mindset.
Yes. Okay, and sorry, which package has been your favorite?
I think that the Smeg one that I was talking about earlier, I think this one for me was the most interesting, and it's interesting because it's like the personal fridge for your bottle, and I just love the shape of it, and the object itself I thought was really beautiful. But honestly, the tape is really growing on me right now, because it really reminds me of all those great memories from early on in my life, and what it meant to me, and about music, about sharing. So I think this one is getting there, and it's fun, and it's different. One of the things too that I want to point out about this package, which is something that the house is starting to do, is it's all made of 100% recyclable material. So I think this is also something we're starting to be very serious about it, and that's also why it's something that I'm dear to, because I think we have a responsibility with all the different packaging that we're doing. So this one is entirely made out of 100% recyclable material. So I think it's fantastic.
That's great. And once you all watching go and buy one, you'll notice it is very light as well. So
yeah,
easy to ship. But okay, well, let's get into the wine, shall we?
Yes.
Aygline? I'll go ahead and start tasting, but let's start with the Brut. And will you know, there's such consistency here with the yellow label. Do you want to share a little bit about, firstly, just how talented the chef de cave has to be to create that consistency and the blending and reserve wines that go into this?
Yeah, I think we don't realize how difficult the process is. And I often compare chef de cave with like a little bit of a painter. You know, you have like so many different colors in front of you, but somehow you need to recreate the same one, you know, over and over. So for a chef de cave, you can have up to 50 different wines, and you need to create 50 different wines from 50 different years sometimes, you know, that goes into it. Because again, the yellow label and Brut champagnes are a blend not only of different grape varieties, different wine created from different vineyards, but also different years. They're all blended together. And somehow, year after year, they're able to recreate a very consistent champagne. So it's something that is, I mean, you need to be extremely talented for this. And they're obviously, you know, secret kind of recipe that are being passed on from chef de cave to ensure that it's always the same kind of style. So in a champagne like a Brut yellow label, this is really the signature of the house. So in that champagne, you will find most of it is Pinot Noir, which is what the house is about. And very early on, Madame Clicquot had a passion for Pinot Noir, and she understood that this grape would bring a lot of structure into the champagne. So this is what we continue to provide with in terms of the style. So most of it is, yeah, again, 55% you'll find Pinot Noir into it. Then the rest is Chardonnay. So those are the two main grapes in champagnes. And there's also Pinot Meunier that as people know about. Pinot Meunier is more rare grape in the world of wine, but in Champagne is quite widely produced. And Pinot Meunier just brings a little bit of salt and pepper to the final touches of the Champagne. So, but again, this is very Pinot Noir. And what is amazing about Pinot Noir is that as you drink it as a red wine, you already know that it's a very versatile wine. And I think that what brings to Yellow Label in particular is that this is a fantastic champagne to drink on its own, but also to pair with a lot of different type of food.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, because champagne is so naturally high in acid, it really should be kind of on your list as you run through wines as to, you know, what you're going to pair with various meals. And you shouldn't be afraid to serve it kind of from aperitif through the whole meal. And especially, you know, drinking the Yellow Label now, you get some of those kind of characteristic kind of orchard fruits and lemon peels and kind of that toasty brioche pastry note on the nose. But then on the palate, that Pinot Noir, I feel, really starts to come through, and you get more structure and kind of more of those red fruits that we think of with Pinot Noir, and specifically kind of a really like raspberry note on the wine. So it you know, very food friendly, and I would encourage you to kind of continue to play around with it with various meals. So beautiful wine. What are your favorite pairings, Aygline?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because again, we think about champagne as being, you know, associated maybe with, you know, I don't know, caviar and those like luxury fancy foods, but I love to pair it with kind of fried chicken, you know, something that is a little bit fattier, so that really, to your point, the acidity of the champagne will cut through this fat and really be a beautiful pairing, you know, try to experience with different things. But like French fries, for example, is a perfect pairing also for our Brut champagne. So there's plenty of different things. And then again, on its own too. And
I will add that your Brut Yellow Label is aged for quite a while, much more than the minimum for non-vintage. So non-vintage champagne by law has to be aged for 15 months, 12 of which has to be on lees. But yours is 3 years of aging, the Brut Yellow Label, correct?
That's absolutely correct. And that will give a lot more character to the champagne, a lot more structure and longevity. So, and the beauty of it is that once it hits the shelf, it's ready to drink.
Yeah, so no aging necessary here, just
no. Well, you could. I mean, this is a question that we get a lot as well. And sometimes it's interesting. You can just have one that you drink right now and then try it later. You can keep it, you know, you can keep your champagne for up to like a non-vintage 3 years. It will taste fantastic, you know. So it's just, it will evolve slowly, but it's you can do both. But usually when it hits the shelf, it's ready to drink.
Okay. And before we make our way to the Rosé, that Pinot Noir dominance that Madame Clicquot kind of started and has stayed true to the house through all these years, is that the case kind of, you know, across your entire offering? Because of course we're just having 2 of the wines tonight, but you know, the La Grande Dame comes to mind and others. Is everything Pinot Noir dominant?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really the signature of the house. And so we'll talk about the Rosé in a bit, but to your point, La Grande Dame, coming with the 2008 vintage, which I believe you have at Binny's, which is our current vintage, there's also been a very bold decision to even increase the level of Pinot Noir into our prestige cuvée. Usually prestige cuvées are very balanced between Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. But with Veuve Clicquot, we're the only prestige champagne that has a clear dominance of Pinot Noir. It's 95% Pinot Noir. You could almost call it a Blanc de Noir. So that's a statement to how much we, not only the expertise of the house on Pinot Noir, but how much we love Pinot Noir at Veuve Clicquot.
Yeah, you're really kind of staking, you know, the flag in the ground there. And I love that because you're right. Sometimes many producers try to kind of get to as close to 50-50 as they kind of, you know, will between Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but it's, you know, you kind of appeal to a lot of people, but it's so characterful when you can have the Pinot Noir as kind of the star of the show and just put it out there as your favorite. So great.
And we still have the historical vineyards that Madame Clicquot had bought at the time that are today like all Grand Crus of Champagne. Yes, so it's pretty amazing, and all Pinot Noir.
And you own those. Those are still with the house.
Yeah.
And does that fruit then go into the
La Grande Dame? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, enticing.
Yes.
Well, let's move on to the Rosé, shall we? And maybe you can we can kind of go back a bit to kind of the blending innovation of Madame Clicquot, and then just your thoughts on this wine.
Sure. So before 1818, Rosé champagne was made in Champagne, but not in the same method. So what happened is that most producers would color the wine with elderberry juice to give it this color. And Madame Clicquot was the first one to have the idea of blending white wine with red wine to give it this color. And again, her expertise in Pinot Noir made a lot of sense because she made, you know, red wine already. So she just kind of had this idea of blending the two to create a rosé champagne. So before that, again, nobody had thought about this. And today, it's probably the most common ways, if not 90% of rosé champagne is made this way, which is very unique. And it's unique also for in the wine world, because I'm sure a lot of us and a lot of you guys drink rosé during the summer, but it's not made this way. It's not by blending white wine and red wine that we make rosé. You know, it's just the contact of the skin is what gives the color to a wine. So by, you know, leaving the skin in contact with the juice a little bit less time, you get the rosé. Longer time, you'll get a red wine. So that's usually how rosé is made. But with champagne, it's very different. It's really creating two different wines and blending those together to create a rosé champagne. So in the particular one that you're drinking is very similar to, it's exactly the same blend as our yellow label and as a signature champagne, but we'll add a little bit of a little bit of a Pinot Noir wine into the blend. So that's what makes it different. So what it does is that obviously, yeah, I was going to say the taste profile is slightly different for sure, giving, again, I think a bit more of that red fruit that we love. That's brought by the Pinot Noir. Maybe also, again, a bit more structure to it, so that it can stand to maybe other foods, such as even think about meat, that could really go with it. And yeah, again, lots of good acidity to the champagne, but overall a very, very nice balance.
Yeah, the fruit is, it's kind of perfectly ripe, almost kind of tart in a fresh, really bright way. I use that word. And the mousse is very airy. It's definitely one, it's mouth-filling. So yes, be adventurous with your pairings, but it's also one I feel that could easily disappear very quickly, because it's a really nice kind of fresh style. I wanted to ask, so at the, at the end of the champagne production process, when you are putting in a little bit of still Pinot Noir, are you always, every year, are you putting in the same amount? Is the chef de cave kind of altering the amount of Pinot Noir? And could you give us just an idea of how much actually goes in? Because for those drinking it, and you can see it's this kind of pale salmon color. So in kind of American measurements, is it like a couple of tablespoons, or how much Pinot is going in here on the red wine side?
So it's about 15 to 20% of red wine that goes into it. Okay. So most of it is so that's how it's usually been. I would say it's pretty consistent, again, over, year after year, but it all depends on what type of harvest you had that particular year. Like, again, it's about trying to get a consistency. So you may have a wine that's a bit more too acidic or not acidic enough, or sweeter or not sweet enough. So it really is, it depends on what the chef de cave has to work with, and maintaining, again, the consistency year after year. But I would say in general, it's about the same percentage of red wine that goes into it.
Okay, thank you. Another question here before we wrap up, just about the current vintage, the current kind of season right now in Champagne. How is that going? What are you hearing back from the house?
So challenging year, because I mean, not about the harvest itself, but about, being able to attend the vineyards, because this pandemic has touched also all the entire world. But it's pretty amazing how our people in the vineyards have continued to take care of the vineyards through this difficult time, and they didn't, because the nature is not going to stop for sure. But what's amazing, it's an incredible year actually for Champagne. It's been very warm in the Champagne region, which is usually not the case. So the harvest started quite early, and usually it is a good sign, because it's the northern region where you can grow grapes. They grow grapes in the UK, so I should stop saying this, but before it used to be. And so it's very cold, right? So usually the harvest happens much later, because the grapes need a lot more time to ripen. But in this case, this year was quite warm, which means that the grapes got a lot of sugar, and a lot of structure. So which is a good sign for the 2020 vintage. So most likely we'll get a vintage 2020 for sure.
All right, there you go, folks. Aygline Pechdo is calling vintage 2020 here.
Well, we need it. We need to have a good thing coming out of this year.
Yes, exactly. It would be one of the very few bright spots, that's for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, Aygline. We really appreciate it. And everyone, go grab a cassette tape package at Binny, and drink champagne just because.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.